everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to take a look at the first full trailer for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Now there might be spoilers for the first movie and all other films within the DC Cinematic Universe, so just beware when going into this overall video. Now just in case anybody who's watching who doesn't know, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is the sequel to the first film, which was released in 2018. Of course, it's based on one of DC's most famous comic book characters, Arthur Curry's Aquaman, who goes on to become king of the large underwater city known as Atlantis. Having established lead actor Jason Momoa in the role previously from Batman vs Superman and also the Justice League, the first movie exceeded all expectations, becoming the first and only DCEU movie to gross over $1 billion at the box office. While generally favoured by audiences, this is a movie that hasn't really carried a lot of impact or relevance post its release, with 5 years being a long time for a sequel to arrive to an original film that made so much money. Now going into this movie, there's been so much doubt and skepticism over whether the film would actually get theatrically released. When we consider the recent failures within the DCU, whether we talk about Black Adam, The Flash, Shazam, or indeed Blue Beetle. We then have all of the controversy surrounding Amber Heard and her involvement as Mira. Would we see her in a reduced capacity following her very controversial television trial with her ex-husband Johnny Depp? Would they indeed try to capitalise on notoriety that Amber Heard brings in order to bring more attention to the film? And going into the release date, which is still scheduled for 20th of December 2023, 3 months up to that date, we still hadn't seen really a full trailer. Now we did have a teaser trailer earlier on this week, but it's very uncommon for a movie of this size and this budget to wait so long before having a full trailer. But all that speculation has changed with the first trailer dropping on Thursday at the time of making this video. And overall, I have to say, I'm not really that impressed. I think first initial impressions are that it really is a movie that seems like a complete mess. It's all over the place in terms of its tone. It really seems that they're going all far out for much more of a brash, comedic knockabout adventure this time round. But to be fair, there was a lot of humour within the first movie, but I think it managed to stay serious for the most part. Now, whilst I didn't mind the first film, I do think it's a bit chaotic and the pacing could have been toned down a bit more. But I did admire the first film for the fact that they did really embrace the source material, they didn't hold back, and that was both to its advantage and also to its detriment. And they're going to take the same approach here. In fact, I'd say for this movie, it seems like they're going to dial everything up to even more than what they did with the first film. Now, depending on your preference, you may have found these scenes very funny, and seeing Jason Momoa again will also bring its own share of fans. But a lot of the humour just didn't land for me, and it really did call back a lot of vibes of what I've seen in previous superhero movies already. I suppose the biggest contradiction came at the start, where we see the opening narration of Arthur talking about the fact that now he's a baby daddy now and that he's been married. So of course we all assume this will be to Mira, of course. We know that of their relationship and romance in the first film, but who knows, maybe the film will spring a surprise and throw in another love interest when we go and see the overall film. But the contradiction comes in the fact that, of course, at the end of the first film, Arthur is very much the anointed king of Atlantis. So what exactly would the king of Atlantis be doing really playing a baby daddy on the Earth's shores? Surely he'd be more occupied with dealing with the more significant matters of keeping control of Atlantis and perhaps building bridges with the other kingdoms that were established in the first film. But when we see him in these opening sequences and he's with his father and then carrying out baby duties, and we see him hanging out his clothes to dry, it just comes across as very silly and very parody. And I think this is completely intentional, by the way. They know exactly what they're doing here. I don't think they're going to go for this more serious, stoic type of vibe that I think somebody like Aquaman should have. Going into this film, I would have much preferred to have a complete adventure set within Atlantis rather than staying on planet Earth. Now, of course, with the first movie, we have a huge wave of CGI pixels and effects. And a lot of it, again, is very chaotic, as what we got with the first movie. And maybe these effects aren't finished. I know that seems a bit of a cliche excuse, but we had to allow for that, given when we see these trailers for the first time, some of the shots and CGI didn't look completely rendered. It's the same old problem that we have with all of these modern action films and blockbusters nowadays, is that it's too obvious green screen. Now, whilst I did give the first film credit for the underwater scenes, again, when you have all of these action and effects popping out all over the place, it just kind of desensitizes you as to the overall action and spectacle. Now, in terms of the main plot, it seems once more that we will be focusing on Black Manta, We all know from the source material that this is one of the most famous villains within Aquaman's stories. The villain, who was played in the first movie by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. We saw basically the origin of Black Manta, where he was very much more of a pirate alongside his father, and then following Aquaman, I believe, taking down a submarine or a ship in the first movie. This resulted in his father dying, and then Black Manta, of course, blames Aquaman for his death. And we saw him at the end of the first movie take some segments of the Atlantean armor, and we saw him at the end credit scene, I believe, questing for vengeance. And to be honest, it's really much more of a disappointing story. Now, don't get me wrong, I think they did great in terms of the overall construct of the Black Manta suit. I think it looks absolutely terrific, and that's actually one great example of embracing the source material and getting it spot on. But just to have the same villain just wanting revenge on Aquaman again, it just feels a bit throwaway. I'm not sure what more they can add to this overall character. Now, it seems that we're going to get some sort of subplot about the trident. As we all know, that's the main weapon that Aquaman wields. And it seems that there's going to be some sort of black version of the weapon that perhaps Black Manta is going to attain and use that in order to fight Aquaman. They kind of do have to even up the overall abilities, because for the most part, I think Aquaman defeated Black Manta pretty easily in the first film. And they had to do that because in the first film, Ocean Master was the main antagonist. But the real question is Black Manta going to have any kind of weight or substance this time round? Or is he just going to be another throwaway villain? We'll see the return of Patrick Wilson as Ocean Master. As I already mentioned, he was the main villain throughout the first story. And it seems here that Aquaman will very much need his brother's help in order to take down Black Manta. And when we see the scenes of him returning and the overall dynamic between the two, I'm sure everybody's going to be drawing comparisons to what we see with Thor and Loki within the Thor movies. And yes, it does give vibes of that particular relationship. Now, as I already mentioned, the big controversy and debate, I'm sure by many online, is how involved would Amber Heard be throughout the film. And we do get this one scene where we see Mira. It seems like she's trapped in some sort of ball or orb. Now, there have been various leaks going around months ago now about this movie that Amber Heard may be in the beginning of the film, and then she'll somehow get trapped to another dimension, which will take her out for the rest of the film. Now, of course, we're not sure as to whether they'll show more of Amber Heard in the second trailer. We presume that we will get before the film's release. But as of now, they decided not to show too much of her in his first trailer, which I probably think was the right move, given all of the previous history surrounding this movie and all of the other DCEU entries. They really wanted to present this as a very much of a spectacular, balls to the wall, action, fun, adventure that you don't really have to think too much about. You could just go in there, turn off your brain and enjoy all of the CGI and spectacle. So it really does depend on your preference surrounding this movie. Whether you do want that sort of vibe or whether you are like me, you probably want something a bit more serious and a bit more significant, given I think the huge potential that the story of Aquaman brings, particularly when we focus on Atlantis and the other kingdoms underwater. So when I look at this trailer overall, again, I'm not really that impressed. I don't think it's going to be anything spectacular. Would it overall be the highest performing of the recent DCU movies? I'd probably go to say so. I really don't think it's going to get anywhere near to the $1 billion gross of the first film from 2018. So I really think if you're a massive fan of the DCU, don't really go into this with high expectations of anything extending in terms of the Snyderverse. Just look at this as a big, dumb, fun adventure and something you can just mindlessly enjoy as a massive sign-off of the end of the Snyderverse, because I don't think this movie is really going to be anything more than that. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings on the first full trailer of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Let me know what you think in the comments below. How successful do you think it will be in terms of the overall recent run of the DC live action movies? And do you think it will be successful enough to close the lid on the Snyderverse as we head towards the James Gunn era? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as usual, with all of my coverage, when the film arrives, I will of course provide both a non-spoiler and spoiler review. Look out for that content within the channel. And if you have any other suggestions regarding any other movies, television series, or any other topics within the entertainment and pop culture scene that you'd like to see me cover, then also let me know within the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on those topics within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.